Debt contraction and its utilization has become a thorny issue in Zambia. Now, while all are agreed that debt is unavoidable, the argument starts when people start talking about the utilization. Now, should debt go into consumption or value-adding sectors? This is Nightlive. I'm Francesca Phiri-Banda. Let's take a break. Welcome back. Our guest tonight is Economics Association of Zambia President Lubinda Habazoka. And tonight we're discussing debt contraction and utilization. You can be part of this discussion by calling us on 0964 122 367, 0964 122 367. So now, Mr. Habazoka, thank you so much for coming on to Nightlive. The government has argued that Zambia is not in a debt crisis, right, and that all is well. As an economist, how would you explain the current status of Zambia before we get into the figures?
Well, I think when you look at the current state of our economy, it depends on what you are looking at. You can say there's no economic crisis because we don't have increased the prices of goods and services. Our exchange rate is stable. Government hasn't defaulted on any debt. Government is able to meet its obligations, be it to contractors, be it to borrowers. When you look at economic growth, it's above 3%, and it has been growing steadily. This year, the growth was even higher than, or is higher than last year. So you cannot say we have a crisis. But there are issues, and the issues have to do with debt. When you look at the laws in Zambia, it's the priority of creditors is very clear. First, you pay the debtors, then government meets its own obligations. So in terms of that, we've seen that salaries have been coming in on time. When you look at government able to ability to pay debt, the debt has been paid. So looking at those quantitative indicators, there's no economic crisis. Yes, the rating agencies downgraded our rating. Why? It's because when they look at Zambia's economy, they look at a lot of factors, economic, political, and other factors. So for them, in the short term, yes, they say we're able to meet our debt obligations, but in the long term, with the maturing of the 3 euro bonds that amount to over almost $3 billion. They haven't seen us putting resources in a sinking fund towards meeting those bullet payments. That's why they say they downgrade our rating, because we basically haven't outlined to the market our plans in terms of paying back the euro bonds when they fall due.
All right. So now, last week, government did disclose that its public debt stands at $15.95 billion, with $9.37 billion being domestic debt and $1.39 billion being arrears, against a projected gross domestic product of $27.4 billion. How do you explain this to an ordinary, person to understand whether we are safe or not?
Well, I think when you look at our debt, it has, I think, grown in the history of Zambia. This is the fastest growth rate in terms of debt. And, you can also look at why that debt came about. It was because of government's appetite to enhance infrastructure development. Roads are being done, schools are being built. So now you can you do the cost-benefit analysis. You do benefit from that. That's now perceptions of individuals. So I think for the citizen, debt is very bad, because debt service starts competing with social programs for funding. But in our case, I think that is not the end of the world. In terms of infrastructure-wise, I think we had been lagging behind. Imagine from 1991, let me say from 1986, when Zambia started having serious economic problems, challenges, our infrastructure had been lagging behind to a level whereby we didn't even have credible hotels or even a shopping mall to show for. roads. I think in 2010 the state of our infrastructure was very, very bad. So we had to move in. So I'm sure government, of course, had to move in and look at debt financing as a sort of a source of revenue or income for infrastructure development. But I think some time back I advised against acquiring Eurobonds, because the problem with Eurobonds is that when you acquire the Eurobonds, during the life of the bonds, you do not pay the principal payments. The only thing you pay is interest, or what is known as coupon payment. So for 10 years, during the life of the Eurobond, you just pay interest. Then at the end, you need to pay the full amount. Now, the idea around that is that you need, as you go forward, you for example, 750 million, which borrowed in 2012, after 10 years, is not going to be worth the 750 million that we borrowed. You know, the time value of money. $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. But for that to be true, your economy has to grow very fast. Unfortunately, because of the energy crisis we had in 2015, our GDP has not grown as expected. We expected to have, by 2022, a GDP of even 50 billion, given a growth rate of around 10%. Metal prices are up high, but our economy is not doing very well because of energy. That's why, as an association, we ask government to prioritize the diversification of our energy sources, that is electricity. And we're very happy that government has realized that, and there's an NPP, nuclear power plant, in the pipeline. But we need to realize that because our economic growth, one, is being affected by the energy, two, by taxes. You know, we need homegrown or domestically generated or motivated economic growth. You and me are the ones that are supposed to be investors. But if we are paying 7.5% taxes on our income, there's no way we are going to save. Everything will be hand to mouth. That's why when you look at research, it's very clear that an economy, government cannot increase its revenue by increasing taxes above 33%. 33% is the maximum. Those that know economics will know, I'm sure, what the Lafarge curve is. If you move taxes from 0% going upwards, government tax revenue increases, but you reach at a certain point when people stop working, or they start moving out, or they become demotivated. The higher the tax, the lower the government revenue. I think we have reached that point. So let us give a debt relief to citizens. Maybe we reduce the taxes to 28%. And then, yes, next year we will suffer. Government will suffer in terms of revenue. But the other year, the economy will pick up because we'll start doing business.
Okay, so now Zambia has just borrowed $30 million, right, to reconstruct Mlungushi International Conference Center in preparation for the Africa Union Summit in 2022. Do you think that this is a worthwhile investment?
I think that was, I know of China giving $30 million towards the provision of electricity. But I think there's also talk about modernizing of the Mlungushi Conference Center, yes, to host the AU African Heads of Summit, State Summit. I think such debt, 30 billion, those are astronomical amounts. We need to prioritize our projects. You know, when I'm looking at $30 million, I'm looking at the next best alternative. I'm looking at domestically generated revenue. I think government could have sourced those resources are here. Maybe that $30 million could have gone to other projects. And, you know, people argue, but where are you going to get that money from? You know, the mines are normally refunded VAT refunds in excess of $1 billion in a year. Just we are refunding them VAT. We refund actually any other company in Zambia, but the main aim of VAT refund is to reduce the cost of doing business. Now, so that companies remain competitive. Now, when you look at our mining sector, we wanted them to remain competitive, but they have not been posting any profit. So why do you continue subsidizing an industry that is not giving you corporate income tax? So you remove the VAT refund, and that incentive can come in another way. I think we are doing, as an association, we are doing a paper regards that. So that $1 billion is saved. 700 million, 750 can go towards a Eurobond repayment. The rest can go towards doing the Mulungushi Conference Center.
Now, so speaking about the Eurobonds, there's been so much talk about that, as well as refinancing and restructuring. All right, let's start with the first Eurobond amounting to $750 million US. What are some of the advantages?
I think Zambia Railways should be the one to repay part of the money. And the second company that should be responsible is ZESCO. ZESCO should take responsibility for the 750 million because they got a larger chunk of the Eurobond. Some projects like roads, yes, we benefited on roads. As the users are paying now, there are tolls toll gates dotted across the nation. We are paying that. But I want to see ZESCO do that because ZESCO has not been very active in terms of showing how much money they are making. Now, when you look at even capacity, even look at the quality of their transmission, I haven't seen that. ZESCO also received a larger chunk from the next Eurobond. So, yes, you can say I think the Eurobonds as such have not really benefited the nation because the company recipients or the industry that received those monies have nothing to show for the money that they got. Zambia Railways, can they show me what have they done with that money? They got over $100 million. Where has the money gone to? Most of the trains that are moving were donated by South Korea. So we want to see where that money has gone to. As technocrats entrusted with government funds, we should be able to generate revenue and ensure that we show to say, okay, government gave us this. Ladies and gentlemen, what are we going to do to repay that money? So ZESCO, the idea was that ZESCO now was supposed to be generating enough revenue to repay the Eurobonds. But unfortunately, of course, we have the El Nino, we have the climate change, we are not receiving enough. Supply is erratic, with the suppressed electricity demand in the country. The wage bill of ZESCO is bloated, too many management, less technical people. Those are the issues that we can look at and see how we can optimize the operations of ZESCO so that ZESCO can start repaying the debt. If ZESCO was operating very efficiently, they were supposed to be setting aside. Imagine now, as we are talking, we are paying ZESCO. We are using acquiring ZESCO. We are using ZESCO services. People that are watching us are using ZESCO services. So how can you tell me that company can be posting losses?
So now, away from the Eurobond, what are some of the disadvantages of refinancing?
I think the refinancing has no disadvantage. It only has an advantage because refinancing. What is refinancing? I borrow. People do it day in, day out. I borrow 100 million. Say I borrow today 50 million kwacha, which I should prepay in 3 years. Then 2 years in the line, I'm remaining to repay 20 million kwacha. Then another bank says, look, the time you were borrowing, the lending rates were 25%. 2 years down the line, you still owe, say, 20 million. Now on the market, lending rates are 15%. So can we give you a loan of 50 million? You repay off that 20 million, the rest will be yours. So you're trying to move from a more strict loan or a more unfavorable loan to a favorable loan. So that's the advantage. The disadvantage, of course, is that you end up paying more money because you are killing off a loan with another loan. But in Zambia's case, refinancing is a solution.
We have a call on the line. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from. You're through to Nightlive. Please go ahead with your contribution. Okay. We seem to have lost that caller. So now you've explained on some of the what government should do in order to ensure that these Eurobonds are paid back. Now, as ECZ, government came up with some austerity measures. As EAZ, rather, do you think that these austerity measures are working so far?
I think we're here to see the benefits. We can only analyze the effectiveness of austerity measures if information is released on how much savings we have made. But when you look at austerity measures, I have another theory. if government does not spend $100 million in an economy, it means that businesses or products are not going worth $100 million are not going to be bought in the market, meaning the economy is going to suffer by $100 million. So I think what government should do is not to cut expenditure, but to see how they can prioritize their spending patterns. For example, instead of maintaining vehicles, I'm very happy that government has started to do away with vehicles. Rather, people should get loans for them. So instead of maintaining a big fleet, let people go and borrow the employees, and then they pay for the cars themselves, meaning the fuel, the servicing will be done by themselves. Government will be saving. Instead of having a ministry that is basically not adding a lot of value, maybe you merge it with another ministry, you reduce the staff.
Would you give some examples of some ministries that could work, if they merged with other ministries?
I need to sit down and do the analysis on an impact analysis to see which ministries can be merged. But there are such ministries.
We'll get back to you.
I'm sure exist. So government should continue spending the money. That's my own opinion. Government should spend money. We shouldn't cut money. Trips should be made. People should go to Livingstone, because Pro-Flight, Mahagoni, they need that money. They need to function. So if you say, no more flying, no more going to Livingstone, the filling stations, who's going to buy the fuel? Who's going to sleep in Livingstone in those lodges? Those people need to make money. So we can stimulate the economy by government spending, but spending in the right areas. That is my philosophy.
Now, you just spoke about trips. When you talk about trips outside the country, for instance, the president is in China, and he did go with him, with a delegation, some Zambian businessmen and some, top government officials. What would be your comment regarding the number of people who travel with the president, whether he's going for, working visit or a trip such as the one he undertook to China?
We cannot compromise international relations. I think the size of the delegation, if for example I went with a person who's just going to go and idle there, that is a misuse of resources. But if, for example, you went with people and all of them come up with good things for Zambia, then that is money well spent. I believe in networking, and we are having the Africa-China summit. You need to go with all those respective ministries, because respective ministries...
Please hold that thought. We do have Alvin from Shalala. Please, Alvin, go ahead with your contribution. You're through to Nightlive. Oh, he's gone. Yes, you were saying.
I think he's doing austerity measures. So I'm saying that people should travel, but they should travel to come back with good deals for the nation. That's what I think on that. I think we should not just cut. Zambians, I say, no, people are traveling, but you don't just travel to go and sit in a room. You need to come up with a better package for Zambia. We have a lot of debt with China that we need to seriously look at that debt. So various ministries, debt in the agriculture sector, debt in various ministries and ministers are represented. So they go and meet their counterpart. You leveraged using the president's presence. Our president has come specifically for this. You'd be taken more seriously. That's why, yes, we should not just travel anyhow, just for a workshop, for what we should. When we are traveling, we should bring back positive results for the country.
Dr. Habazoka, thank you so much for coming on to Nightlive. This has been Nightlive, and we were discussing debt contraction and utilization. Thank you so much for the pleasure of your company. Good evening and stay blessed.